This interview is part of a community-engaged living history project at the University of Guelph, interested in first-hand testimony and oral histories of Italian-Canadian immigrants and documenting their personal, in-depth narratives of their immigration experience from Italy to Canada. In addition to the oral histories we have recorded, the individuals, families, communities, and organizations we have engaged with for this project have been encouraged to share historical items, documents, letters, and photos that capture the experiences of Italians in Canada. These artifacts will be used to create an informative textual and visual report to illustrate and preserve these personal stories specifically and the Italian-Canadian immigration experience in general. In this way, we can connect the events of the past with the lived experiences of actual people. The following interview took place on the 5th of October, 2023 in Milton, Ontario, at the home of Maria Naccarato, who immigrated to Canada from Italy in 1954, and her son, Franco, who was born in Canada.
My father had come over a few years before us to work, and when he was settled, then he called my mother, my brother, and myself to join him. We arrived in Halifax, and then we took a train. I think it was a 3-day train ride to Toronto. And I remember that first time that I saw my dad. And I'm getting emotional.
That's okay.
So, yeah.
Tell me about that. I don't think I've ever heard that story.
What?
About where you saw him.
He was waiting for the train. And I spotted him. As the train came up, I spotted my dad outside.
Did you give him a hug?
Oh, God, yeah.
Because you've been without him for over 3 years?
4 years.
4 years. He was working on the railroads, right?
Yes.
He started in Vancouver?
Yes. So, yeah, it was a happy meeting.
I bet.
Yeah. The rest is history. I was 7 and I immigrated from Altilia, which is in the province of Cosenza, and it's in southern Calabria, southern Italy. By boat. We came across, and I think it was took 2 weeks on the ocean to get us here. And my brother actually fell ill, I remember now, on the boat, and I didn't even see my mother for 2 weeks. I stayed with this other lady that my mother had made friends with because my brother was really ill. So he nursed my brother the whole time, and I barely saw my mother those 2 weeks. That's about all I remember. Is I was with this strange lady, and I couldn't understand why. I mean, I was a little girl myself, right? I couldn't understand why I couldn't go see my mom. But she was, she was nursing my brother, so. And I don't even think there was a doctor on board the ship, so my mother kind of, had to do the nursing herself.
And how many people do you think were on that boat with you?
Oh gosh, I would say maybe 500-600, I would think. I would think so. It was a big, huge boat. And I remember landing in Halifax and getting our trunks, and everybody was saying they're going to open them, because they did. Because Italians like to be really prepared, okay? So they take their bottles, they take their salami with them, right? And you're not allowed. So they were open. I remember my mother saying, I hope she doesn't open, I hope he doesn't open them, right? They didn't.
What did she bring?
Sopressata and liquor.
Can't leave home without it.
Can't leave home without it. Just how big it was. Coming from a little small town and never really leaving that small town. It was just, you could walk it in 10 minutes. Just the vastness of it all. No, I don't. I mean, Dad had already got a house. There was a school for me to go to, and we walked to school, and it was like 4 or 5 kilometers. And I can remember doing that walk, and because it was a Catholic school, and we went to the Catholic schools. So everything was sort of set up for us when we got here.
Were there other Italian children at the school?
No, not when I first started. Later on there was, but when I first started, no. And I couldn't speak a word. And I remember I was in grade 2, and I'm listening to them all, right? Not understanding what they're saying, not really understanding what's going on, but we were coloring. And after about a month, I had enough nerve to put up my hand and say, we were taught by nuns, by the way. I had enough nerve to put up my hand and say, I need green. I needed a green color. I've never forgotten that.
That was the first thing you asked?
Yeah. That was my first spoken sentence in English. I need the color green. That's a picture of my grandfather. This is my dad's side of the family now.
So
right?
which nonno is that? Nonno.
Nonno Pepe.
That's Nonno Pepe?
That's Nonno
Oh,
Pepe.
yeah.
This
So,
is.
so my grandfather lived to 104. My great grandfather.
He did, yeah. This is his wife, my grandmother.
Now she died. He was young. He was in his 40s.
She was 72 when she died.
Oh, I thought he was.
No, he was old.
Okay.
And this is a picture of my dad when he was, I guess, about 18.
He was a
I don't
handsome
know
fellow.
what this is, but I bet you this is the real birth certificate, actually.
Of what? 1905.
1905. My grandmother's born in 1905. So
Yeah, because it was
that's-
issued 7th of March 1965.
Okay, this is my grandmother's birth certificate.
Romano Marietta.
She was Romano, that was her maiden name. Marietta was her first name. So this is my grandmother's birth certificate, and this is my father's mother, and she was born in 1905, and this was issued, what did you say?
1965.
1965 for us. So it's the only thing I have left of hers. So this is 1940 when they got married. 1939, I guess. 1940. Yeah, that's my husband's parents. And in Italy, she's not dressed in white, but in Italy they had a custom that when the couple got married, they went into seclusion for 10 days. So when they came out, they were dressed to the hilt, and then they came out into society and had their party and everything, right? So that's their coming out outfit. Trust me, in those days, you did not spend any time alone, and I can vouch for that, because I was brought up that way. This is my mother's mother and my mother's father. And this is him.
Oh, look at that photo. These are great.
Isn't that fantastic?
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. Look at that.
Yes, I did, but I'm still Italian through and through. And we went back home in 2005, actually, and I had never been back since I left in 1954. I'd never been back. We went back in 2005, and I'm standing in St. Peter's Square, and all of a sudden the tears. And I thought to myself, I'm home. This is home. So it still pulls, you know. I mean, I love Canada. I mean, it's given me a future. It's given me a family. It's given me a life. More than I could ever have had in Italy. I mean, there's just no comparison, right? And I owe that to my father for being brave enough to do what he did, you know. And my mother, it wasn't easy for her, you know. So, yeah. Well, this is home. It's always been home. I mean, I grew up here, and, you know.
But when you go there, you feel...
I actually felt, I didn't think I would, but I actually did. And going back and seeing the house where I had been born into was really surreal to see that. No. No, I was too small. My mother had her family there back home, so she would write to her brothers and her sister. Yeah.
Do any of those letters survive?
Oh, I don't think so.
No.
No. That's me and
You and
Joe.
Uncle Joe?
Me and Joe, yeah.
Probably around the age you would have been when you came here.
It looks like I'm about 3 years old there.
So you would have been older when you came over.
I was 7. So this was taken actually just before we came. These were passport pictures done by professionals. You can see the difference in,
That's pretty cool.
in the photographs.
1954, right on the back it says.
That's the ones we took for the passports. And this is with my mom.
this was the first full generation of your family that lived in Canada.
Yes.
Your dad, your mom, yourself, your brother.
Yeah. And then like my grandparents and my aunts and uncles are all here now.
They all followed after.
They did.
So my mother's family, my father called over the older brother, my Uncle Tony, and he brought him across, and he came. The rest of her family didn't want to come. My dad was willing to sponsor them and bring them, but they said no, they want to stay where they were. Okay, so his name is Eugenio Naccarato. We call him Genio or Gino, whatever. During that immigration business, when we came here, my husband's family went to Belgium to work. So my father-in-law and his brother went to Belgium. They worked the coal mines. They moved the whole family over, right? So one of his brothers, Agostino, came to Canada before they did and before my husband did. And they live with us because my mother at that time then was taking boarders to help to make some money, right? So he lived with us for, I guess, about, I would say, a year before my father-in-law came across. So the families kind of knew each other.
Did they know each other back in Italy?
No.
So their hometowns are like 2 kilometers apart. My mom's town is up on top, they're on the mountains, and my dad's town's at the bottom of the mountain. And they always battle of who's the best, right? So the Altilia say, we're on the top, we're the best. The Grimaldese say, but we have the water, so we're the best.
Yeah, but tell me something. We sent them the water. Water
But who had access to it?
Okay, but water doesn't go uphill, it goes
See,
down.
this is a generational fight.
My
between
husband and
the
I
two.
used to argue about that all the time. He says, no, we gave it to your town. I says, really? The water went uphill to my town?
So you didn't know each other,
No.
even though you grew up so close?
No, but the families, once they came, the families stayed really, really close together. In fact, when my brother Lee was born, my husband was his godfather for his christening. So that's how the family got really close and together, right?
I'm in my late 40s, and it was only a year ago that I found out how you guys got engaged.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty funny story.
We were living on Wooden Hill, which is Eglinton near Caledonia, and they lived on McRoberts, which was about 3 or 4 streets over. And the families visited back and forth constantly, right? I was 13, 14 at the time. Well, I was in grade 10, so figure it out. Do the math.
I'm older than that. You're like 15, 16.
Yeah, probably 15.
Because you were about 17, 18 when you got married.
I was 18.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Tell the story.
we were out, and
Where were you?
we had gone to visit somebody. My father and his father were in the back seat of the car. I was in the front with him. So we're talking away, and this is just when the Beatles had just hit, and they were famous and everything, right? And I was crazy about the Beatles. So we're talking about them, and I just said to him, you know, I'd give anything to see them, you know. They are just phenomenal, blah, 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 back and forth, back and forth. And he says, well, if you give me the right answer to a question, he says, I'll take you to see them. That was his proposal. I never did get to see the Beatles. No, he welched on that.
They got too busy and everything else.
It's a good story. Yeah. That's a good story. While Franco's mother Maria did immigrate from Italy, Franco did not. He was born in Canada, and as such, his experiences as an Italian Canadian are unique from Maria's.
I didn't always. So I think I remember my mom telling me the story that I was actually, if she said I was Italian, I refused. I said, I refused to acknowledge that I was Italian. I'd actually say, no, I'm Canadian. That changed after the World Cup in '82. So I don't think I had associated. I was too young. Maybe I didn't understand what it meant to be Italian, but I think the World Cup changed that for everyone. And I could remember that day to a T. It's so clearly in my mind what happened.
And you were how old?
82, so I would have been
You were born 75, 7.
7 years old. And I remember all the kids, all my cousins, were in one room watching this soccer game. And at one point we had to go outside to go next door because all the parents were in the next door's house. We needed food or something, I don't know what it was. So we ran outside and we had to run because we didn't want to miss any of the game. And it was intermission, I think. But I remember running outside, I was running around and I stopped. It was complete silence on the street. Our street was never silent. There was always people outside. It was a very, very Italian community. It was complete. You could hear a pin drop. And I just remember stopping. I was like, this is weird. Didn't understand it then, but afterwards, as I realized what it was. So anyways, goes on. Italy wins the World Cup. Yay, we're all happy. And then my uncle pulls up in his van and said, everybody get in your cars. We're going to St. Clair. And I had no idea what St. Clair is, even though I'd been there 1,000 times. And I remember going down the street, and the streets are lined from one end to the other of people walking, celebrating, complete joy.
300,000.
3 or 5.
300,000. And not one window broken, not one arrest. Just lots of fun for everyone.
I remember looking up at the stores, and I don't know if you know St. Clair. You know how tall they are. People were lined across the rooftops all the way down the street. And I remember just saying, wow, this is what Italian is. That was my moment. But I did learn Italian at school, and that was something that my mom made sure of, that Italian. I think you even played a role in making sure that when the school came over. So my mom was actually involved in getting my school opened.
I was on the PTA.
There was a school further away, it was too far, and she kept lobbying the government to get a school opened. And when she did, she wanted to make sure that there was an Italian teacher so that we could learn Italian. So we actually learned it in school. There was a class, you'd have French class, you'd have Italian class. And so I got to learn Italian, and I didn't realize how valuable that was until I go to Italy in my teens, and I could actually communicate with my friends and people that we met there, while my cousins, I had cousins that didn't speak a word of Italian, they were like lost. They were like, So I've lost most of it because you don't use it, right? But when you hear it, you get used to it. I went to Italy in when was I there on my own?
We went to Australia.
2001?
We went to Australia.
2000, yeah, around 2000, 2001. And I went to go see my cousins, and I had cousins that were the same age, and we were talking, and they were giggling, and I go, what's so funny? Like, you talk like a school child. It's so cute. Because that was the level of my vocabulary, I learned till grade 8, which is probably their grade 2, right? So my vocabulary was very basic and very simple. So the last few months of my dad's life, he spent in the hospital. And this was one of his favorite things to do. He would listen to the radio. And I'd giggle, and because he'd be serenading the nurses. He'd be singing along with it. Doors wide open, I'd be walking up and I could hear my dad singing to whatever song it was. It made him happy and made him smile. So he loved the oldies. The last thing we did together was we played bocce together.
So this is another one by Nino Rossi, and the reason I want you to hear it is because that's my ringtone, and I created it. I created my own ringtone from that song. I love this song.
Tech geeky.
Love it.
That song's played when the father dances
with the
his
bride,
daughter,
right? Yeah.
at her wedding. And every time that was played, my mom would grab me at the wedding, and she'd be like, "Hold on to me." She'd get all emotional. She loved it.
So these are called kutsupe, which is like an Easter bread. And so it involves yeast and flour and eggs. It's very, very plain, and it's made just at Easter time. And what you do is you mix all your ingredients, you put them in a bowl, then you roll them out, and you braid them. And at the top of you bend it, and at the top of the braid there, where it forms a circle, you put in an egg. So it becomes like an Easter egg for the kids. And then the Easter morning, they have that egg. So that's the Easter one. This is polpette, which are like a big meatball. And they are done, you know how you have Pancake Tuesday for Lent? All right, so in our town, we do this. And you do these on
what's it called?
the Tuesday, polpette del Carnevale.
The Carnival.
So it's either on the Tuesday or the Sunday of that week, but Lent, okay? And it opens up Lent for us. And what this has is it has a lot of pork meat, it has eggs, it has ground meat, it has cheese, and then you boil pork bones, and you boil a fillet of pork or something, a loin or something, and you make this broth. So then you put the broth in there as well. You form them, and once you form them, then you boil them in the remaining broth. So you make a great big pot of the broth, right? And you cook them in that. These are little tarts. Well, you had the recipe in your hand. This is the little tarts that we're talking about, that you put the jam in, but you make your own jam for it.
And we have some to try.
We have some to
You
try.
have the jam to try, yes.
So we should try it.
And I'm going to play Lauretta
I
now.
was going to play Lauretta for you. You gotta stir it, Frank.